Welcome, welcome, folks. We made it to Friday. It's August the 22nd, 2025. This is Hurricane Hub Live. Welcome. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandajis, and we're still going to touch a little bit on Erin. It's now post-tropical and heading into the North Atlantic, but we're going to mainly focus on today two other tropical waves that have growing chances of becoming our next named storm. So that's what we'll focus on here on HHL tonight. All right, here's the breakdown for you. Erin, again, going post-tropical. And what does that mean? We'll get into that in just a second. Next storm on deck will be our sixth named storm, Fernand. D is silent. It's on deck for our sixth named storm. And Invest 99L right on its heels. Okay, so we've got two invests out there in the Atlantic Basin. And could that one be the one to watch? It's a little misleading at its current state, and you'll see it on satellite imagery here. But in the long run, if its energy does hold together, we may be looking at something in the Caribbean, potentially like a week out from now or so. All right, so what's the difference between Erin being a tropical system and now going post-tropical? Well, there are some very important differences here. It loses its tropical characteristics now that it's post-tropical. It no longer needs the warm ocean water to sustain its intensity. Okay, it's getting that more from the changes in air masses. It becomes more frontal. And it's structured differently from a tropical system. It's more asymmetrical, certainly. You'll see it on satellite. Tropical systems are more rounded, more symmetrical, more circular. And the max winds are near the center with tropical storm, not so much with post-tropical. You see that wind field greatly expand. And, of course, a tropical system is fueled by the warm ocean waters, especially down in the tropics, obviously. All right, here's a look at post-tropical storm Erin right now. Still packing a punch. It's going to be a very powerful ocean storm here in the North Atlantic in the next couple of days. 90-mile-per-hour winds, still gusts to 115. It is cruising east-northeast at 33 miles per hour, and it's still 957 millibars, so still a relatively deep storm. But look at how sheared it is, getting completely displaced off to the north and east as it has its barrel here moving on through to the northeast pretty quickly. Now, I find this fascinating. As we look back at Hurricane Erin's track, when it was at its strongest, Category 4 and Category 5, and it was slowing down as it was beginning to turn make that turn to the west-northwest. It was rounding the far southwestern periphery of that subtropical high. Well, as it slowed down and was intensifying, it not only was extracting an immense amount of heat energy from the warm ocean, but it was also violently mixing the ocean, called upwelling. And as a result, it cooled the ocean down significantly in its path by about 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is what we call a cool or cold wake. When you get a very intense tropical system, you typically see this if you look at it several days later, the sea surface temperature anomalies here. So the blue is now temperatures that are below what's typically normal for this time of the year. You can see warmer than normal to the northeast of it, and to the southwest, still warmer than normal. So it really did extract a lot of heat energy as it had to power that massive heat engine, that massive wind generator and wave generator as it pushed off to the north and then cruised parallel to the eastern seaboard. We're going to check out one last camera here out at Hatteras in Frisco. This is on Highway 12. Still dealing with some issues. You can see still some standing water there. The roadway is sand covered, but I tell you what, NCDOT does a great job. They'll be back out there as soon as it's safe to do so, and there won't be any threat of more overwash, and take care of this, and it'll be reopened probably in just a couple of days. So very interesting to watch. I also like stats, okay? And I thought it was very interesting that Erin didn't make landfall. And it's very unusual to see a storm that maxes out as a Category 5 and does not make landfall at all in its entire lifetime. In fact, I went back to 2000 and compiled a list of all storms that achieved at peak intensity Category 5. And including Erin, there's only 2 out of the 19 that I found that did not make landfall. And honestly, Erin is, I think, the only one, because Lorenzo actually did make landfall as an extratropical storm in Ireland, as it kind of made that same kind of turn out to sea and then made landfall in Ireland as extratropical. So honestly, you can say Erin was the only one in the last 25 years that did not make landfall that had peak intensity as a Category 5. So we dodged a bullet, obviously. Everybody dodged a bullet. And unfortunately, before it was actually a named storm, it moved over the Cape Verde Islands, and a few folks did lose their lives from the immense flooding that it generated with that tropical wave. But as it was named, did not make a landfall anywhere. All right, coming up after a quick break, folks, we're about 3 weeks out from the peak of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. Big question is what's next? We're getting close, so we should see a lot more activity ramp up, right? And now what's the likelihood of Invest 90L and 99L of developing? We'll go through those odds. Brand new update came out from the Hurricane Center at the top of the hour. I'll bring that to you after a quick break. Welcome back to Hurricane Hub Live. 8 o'clock tropical weather outlook released from the National Hurricane Center has post-tropical Erin well in the North Atlantic. And we've got two other waves that have been tagged as INVEST or investigative areas of interest to us that we want to keep tracking as we go forward. And that models are somewhat hinting at development. Well, at least for 90L, it is hinting at likely development here. You can see that is building to the north. It's got an 80% chance in 48 hours of getting the next name, Fernand, and 90% chance within 7 days. So quite likely we get our next name storm out of 90L. On its heels, far off to the south and east there, we've got Invest 99L. Now you may be wondering, why is this one named 90 and this one 99? Well, this one was named first as an Invest 99. We cycled 90 to 99. So 99 was the last one, and now we recycled back to 90, and this was tagged as Invest 90L yesterday. Little confusing, but that's what happened. All right, so 99L, actually chances have gone down of development. Yesterday it was 50-50 odds. Now that has been slashed in half here. Low chances of this developing. It's been battling dry air and shear for the last couple days, but I tell you what, it's been kind of going against model odds here. And doing its own thing. So I think it's going to be something we would have to watch with the energy, the residual energy eventually making it into the Caribbean. All right, let's start with 90L. 30-mile-per-hour winds, gust to 40. Still obviously not a named storm yet. It's a little bit strewn out here. But it does definitely have a center of circulation, most likely, as it's moving to the northwest at 17. I don't know if you can see it there, but Bermuda is right about there. So models here do track it farther to the east, which is good news and missing. Bermuda, most likely, I'll share those with you in just a second, but it certainly is almost encapsulated here by a lot of dry air. And that's not only detrimental to this system, it's also looking like it's impacting significantly 99L. And you can see there's a moisture pocket, certainly, but on all sides, we've got some pretty dry mid-levels of the atmosphere in there. And, of course, some of that dry air could get ingested or entrained into the circulation. All right, we do have model plots on this. So, again, there's Bermuda. Pretty good agreement here, taking this due north as it rounds now the weekend subtropical high here that helped to steer Erin to the north and eventually northeast. Good coupling here, very tightly spaced. and does take it to the east of Bermuda, and that means that Bermuda would be on the clean side. Now, in terms of intensity estimates with 90L, most models do have this quickly forming into a hurricane. So it'll be our second hurricane of the season. It'll likely be a very small system and move to the north quite fast, too. So we don't expect it to cause many issues at all. Now, back to the east here, we've got what's left of 99L here, and you can see this is very large envelope of activity, or envelope of energy, really. And there's no really clear center of circulation. I tell you what, 24 hours ago, it definitely looked like it was getting there, but shear and some dry air has really been impacting. You can see the air is even drier around 99L right now as it moves due west at 17 miles per hour. And I want to take note of how low the latitude is. 10.1 degrees north. This is what we call a low rider, and typically when they are at this low latitude, they pose more of a risk for the Caribbean and then eventually into the Gulf if they do hold together, if conditions are favorable a little bit farther off to the west there. Now, models here do send it due west for the foreseeable future. Now, with the shear and the dry air and overall more sinking motion available in the atmosphere, conditions are pretty unfavorable going forward here. But the general track of whatever's left, the shell of what it was, should make it into the Caribbean, and maybe eventually, as we go out 7, 8, 9 days, if the moisture envelope holds together, we start to see it move into more favorable environmental conditions, and it could act as a seed moving in a more fertile environment and develop from there. And that's what some models, say the outliers, do. They do develop it farther down the line here, while most models fail to develop anything at all. So just be something to kind of monitor as we go forward. So the next names on our list after Erin is going to be Fernand and then Gabrielle. And then if we get there, Humberto, Imelda, and Jerry. All right, coming up after another quick break, folks, we're going to have our HHL trivia. We'll see you after a quick break. Welcome back to Hurricane Hub Live. Yesterday's trivia question was, believe it or not, hurricanes have made landfall in Maine. Name the last one. Now, Bob did make landfall in Maine, but my bad. It actually made landfall as a tropical storm. So my research was a little bit off. It was actually Gerda that made landfall last as a hurricane in Maine. That was all the way back in 1969, so a Category 1 storm. Now, Bob made landfall, but it was a high-end tropical storm after making landfall in Massachusetts as a Category 1 hurricane. So strong tropical storm there with Bob and Gerda back September 10th, 1969. All right, folks, a reminder that Hurricane Hub Live is every night now. We go 7 days a week at 8 p.m. And tomorrow night and Sunday night, you'll have Hunter Forrest, meteorologist Hunter Forrest, to take you through the latest on the tropical Atlantic and any new developments that may arise. Have a great weekend.